In Palestine, health authorities warn that Israeli attacks difficult burying decomposing bodies. In Belgium, the European Union's humanitarian aid chief called for meaningful pauses in the fighting in Gaza and urgent deliveries of fuel to keep hospitals running. And in Kenya, negotiations on a global treaty to combat plastic pollution open in Nairobi. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Palestine, health authorities warn about the difficulties in burying decomposing bodies due to the Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip. The Palestinian Health Ministry warned that medical staff in Gaza are facing difficulties in moving around inside Al-Shifa hospital due to Israeli drones targeting any movement. Also, the authorities warned that some 100 deceased have not been able to be buried due to the threat to lives of medical staff, adding a problem to the public health system in Gaza, affected since the beginning of the Israeli operation on October 7th. Hospitals warned that the Israeli occupation condemns inmates to death due to the lack of medical supplies, fuel, and electricity. The World Health Organization confirmed the death toll of patients, medical staff, and refugees ramped up in Gaza and hospitals harassed in the latest hours by the occupant army. WHO's Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus referred that after having recovered contact with Al-Shifa Hospital, the biggest in Gaza Strip, that constant shootings and attacks on the area have worsened the situation. The number of patients' deaths surged due to the lack of power, water, and medicine. All patients in the intensive care units have passed away, including newborns. Local press reported that snipers shot dead 4 nurses and the outstanding nephrologist who had lately affirmed that he would never leave his patients behind. And the Al-Shifa hospital denied Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who claimed that they had been offered 300 liters of fuel to reactivate the power of the hospital that has been bombed for 3 days. The Zionist Prime Minister made the statement to a U.S. media, while the director of the hospital, Muhammad Abu Salmeya, denied this fact and confirmed that all the patients in the intensive care unit died. He wonders why Israel does not deliver the fuel through the International Red Cross. On the other hand, Hamas clarified that it has no authority over the hospital and pointed out that the 300 liters allegedly offered by Israel are not even enough for 30 minutes of service in the largest hospital in Gaza. The Gazan government press office reported following the intensification of the bombardment by the Israeli occupation forces in Palestine, the death toll has risen to 11,180. According to the UN, 1.5 million Palestinians have been forced to leave their homes since Israel imposed a total siege on the Gaza Strip, depriving the population of water, medicine, food, and electricity. In the 5th week of attacks on the Palestinian territory, the Palestinian Ministry of Health raised the death toll to 11,180, including 4,609 children and 3,100 women. Currently, Israeli attacks are concentrated in Gaza City, especially around some hospitals which the Israeli army claims are being used to hide strategic resistance infrastructure. According to the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, 20 of the 36 hospitals in the Gaza Strip are out of service due to the lack of supplies. The food situation in Gaza is precarious as the Israeli army has destroyed most of the food production facilities, forcing many to produce their food in improvised facilities. For more details, our correspondent Noor Harasin reports from the Gaza Strip.
We are actually now inside the Al-Mawasi camp that was set to accept thousands of Palestinian refugees that left their homes in northern Gaza here to southern Gaza. Right now I am inside the tent, and actually this is the newest bakery for the Palestinian people here in Gaza that left their homes, because there is no electricity, because there is no gas, and because also Israel targeted most of the bakeries in northern and southern Gaza. Now Palestinians are making bread inside their own ovens. They made it from the sand and water, and they are using the wood actually to cook the bread. And talking to some of the residents here, actually this is the only thing that they have to eat. They only have bread now to eat. There is no canned food, there is no vegetables. Apparently, the Gaza Strip and the people here of Gaza are back in time for at least 20, 30 years ago. This is Noor Harazin, TeleSUR, Gaza.
The Israeli government steps up harassment and persecution of the press. Al-Mayadeen's West Bank bureau was closed and its reporters' equipment confiscated on Monday. The Zionist executive has decided to approve the proposal of Communications Minister Shlomo Karhi on Monday morning. The occupier's telecommunications authority confirmed the cabinet's decision and added that it had also ordered the confiscation of the equipment of the Lebanese channel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government has unleashed an unprecedented war on the media, killing more journalists than in any other conflict in the world in just 1 month. Nasser al-Laham, director of Al-Mayadeen, declared that they will continue to fulfill their mission to inform. On Monday, the EU's humanitarian aid chief called for meaningful pauses in the fighting in Gaza, urging deliveries of fuel to keep hospitals working in the territory. The appeal went out as battles between the Israeli occupation forces intensify their shelling around Gaza's largest hospital. The Hamas-run health ministry said on Monday the hospitals in the center of the heaviest fighting in North Gaza have been forced out of service amid shortages and relentless bombings. The EU's 27 countries issued a statement saying hospitals must be protected. The bloc demanded immediate humanitarian pauses to allow desperately needed aid into the besieged territory. United Nations delegations at their headquarters initiate honors in memory of colleagues killed by Israel in Gaza. A worldwide tribute is held on Monday at their name. The occupying army has caused in 1 month the largest slaughter of humanitarian workers in 75 years of its creation. In their memory, offices around the world will observe this Monday a minute of silence, and flags at their headquarters will remain at half-mast. Among those killed are teachers, nurses, doctors, and support staff. Humanitarian workers and journalists have been the direct target of the occupiers' fire. In 4 weeks, Israel killed more journalists than in any conflict in at least 3 decades. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak dismissed his Home Secretary Suella Braverman over criticism of the police. The now former secretary accused the police of double standards and of being lenient in favoring the pro-Palestinian demonstrators during the control of the demonstrations held in the country. During the last hours, there had been increasing calls for her resignation after attacking the police for authorizing pro-Palestinian protests, which she defined as hate marches. The British Premier also announced a reshuffle in his government. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back from the South. On Monday, the first headlines in the national and international press unanimously awarded the victory of Sergio Massa of Union for the Homeland against Javier Milei of Liberty Advances in the last debate of the Argentine presidential race. During the almost 2 hours of the debate, the progressive candidate kept controlling the 6 thematic blocks. On the other hand, the libertarian candidate quickly used an aggressive verb where words such as caste, cancer, or extermination came up again. Sergio Massa organized a battery of questions challenging Javier Milei to take a position on sensitive issues. The pollsters preliminarily pointed out that Massa looked much more presidential than Milei, who even managed to run out of words. During the last debate, candidate Sergio Massa talked about the education.
What Argentina needs is an improvement for labor laws based on the needs of Argentinians. What Argentina needs Our new laws for our kids is to for them to have accessible schools at affordable prices.
Meanwhile, Javier Milei, candidate for the Argentine presidency for the Liberty Advances Party, during his speech in the presidential debate, gave details of how the health and education sectors would be conformed.
We know that health and education are primary points. So therefore, that's why those ministries will have four main offices. And all of them would be directly related to those fields. When you take a look to the history of humanity, you know that these 2 points have played a very important role in development. So, therefore, we can understand that it's paramount for people to be healthy and to be well fed. That's why we're paying so much attention to food and education, especially with children.
Victims' relatives of extrajudicial executions committed by members of the Colombian army accused former President Álvaro Uribe to Argentinian courts. The lawsuit was filed at the Federal Court of Sebastián Ramos by 11 victims' relatives, the Solidarity Committee with political prisoners, the staff of attorneys José Albiar Restrepo, and the Libertad Legal Corporation. The plaintiffs expressed they are willing to do justice to 6,402 people, most of them murdered and others missing, after having been identified as members of guerrillas groups or full for being transferred to remote areas where they would be included as death in combat. In Bolivia, the government filed an appeal against the courts ruled as incompetent to prosecute the former de facto president and main defendant in the Sencat and Sacaba massacres, Yanin Áñez. The Minister of the Presidency, Maria Nela Prada, pointed out that they do not share the decision of the courts, and for this reason they took the corresponding actions within the scope of justice. Nela Prada also detailed that the dispute is in court and clarified that the government will continue taking appropriate actions. Áñez stands accused of the crimes of genocide, homicide, serious and minor injuries. In Mexico, at least 6 people were killed in a shootout between police officers and alleged members of criminal groups in the state of Zacatecas. The incident took place in the neighborhood of the state capital when state police officers were attacked from inside a house by alleged members of a criminal organization. According to authorities, among the dead were 3 police officers, while another officer was seriously injured and remains hospitalized. The confrontation occurred hours after the bodies of 7 men were reportedly found murdered in 2 towns in Zacatecas. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin confirmed that his military forces carried out an attack on facilities on Syrian ground. According to the head of the U.S. Defense, the aggression of the occupying troops would have been directed at some supposed Iranian bases in the cities of Abu Kamal and Mayadin in the Syrian east. The military report points out that it is a response to the constant attacks against their illegal bases in Syria and Iraq. The Islamic resistance groups in Iraq and Yemen have claimed more than 40 attacks against United States military bases. They affirm that Washington is an accomplice of the Zionist genocide in the Gaza Strip. Led by the Spanish People's Party's leader, Dolores Montserrat, the European People's Party presents a petition to the Strasbourg Court of Justice on Monday calling for a debate on the amnesty law. The request is made through the table of parliamentary spokespersons so that the court accepts it as soon as possible. The group assures the first thing this Monday will make the request to try to stop the law that the Socialists and the Catalan independencies have agreed on. For their part, the representative of Pedro Sánchez could be preparing a debate on the rule of law of Hungary, and in this way, and with this legal precedent, to avoid talking about the situation in Spain. And in this context, the Popular Party summoned millions of citizens on Sunday to its rallies to protest against the amnesty law and the government of Pedro Sánchez. Demonstrations were held all around Spain. Thousands gathered in the main squares of the state departments to show their opposition to the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party. The president of the Popular Party, Alberto Núñez Feijóo, led the march in the city of Seville with a crowd that overflowed the streets of the city. In this sense, the PP assures that more than 30,000 people attended the different rallies all over the country. On Monday, Poland's new parliament opened for its first post-election session as both the ruling populist and the liberal opposition bid to form the next government. The ruling Law and Justice Party won the largest number of seats in the October elections, though short of a majority nevertheless. President Andrzej Duda has given them the first crack at forming a new government, which the analysts say they have no chance of doing. In his opening speech before Parliament, Duda declared readiness to cooperate with the new lawmakers, but praised the PIS allies for 8 good years they had spent in power. Three pro-EU parties, led by former Prime Minister and European Council President Donald Tusk, won enough to form a majority and are preparing to form a government, although they first will have to wait for the PIS effort to fail. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at TeleSUR English, there you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. The final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the South. The United Nations has confirmed that more than 800 people were killed in Darfur, Western Sudan. The attack occurred in Ardamata, a town in the province of Western Darfur. Their militias and allied paramilitaries razed the town to the ground. The report by doctors in the area was endorsed by the United Nations. In addition to the fatalities, human rights organizations report numerous sexual attacks against women and girls, many of them held as slaves. The conflict in Sudan, which has moved out of the international spotlight, has already resulted in 12,000 deaths and 6 million displaced people since the conflict began on April 15th. In India, about 40 workers were trapped underground after the road tunnel they were building in the state of Uttarakhand collapsed. According to authorities, the collapse of the underpass between Sikhara and Dandalon occurred early Sunday morning during construction work. No fatalities or injuries have been confirmed so far. Rescue services are supplying oxygen through the rubble to the best of their ability as they work to try to get the workers out safely. The latest negotiations on a global treaty to combat plastic pollution opened in Nairobi on Monday, with tensions expected as nations wrangle over what should be included in the pact. Some 175 countries agreed last year to conclude a UN treaty by 2024 to tackle the plastic that is fouling the oceans, floating in the atmosphere, and infiltrating the bodies of animals and humans. While there is broad consensus that a treaty is needed, there are very different views on what should be in it. As the talks formally open, some 60 so-called high-ambition nations have called for binding rules to reduce the use and production of plastic made from fossil fuels, a measure supported by many environmental groups.
The urgency of addressing plastic pollution cannot be overstated. Plastic waste continues to inundate our oceans, harm wildlife, and infiltrate our ecosystems. It poses a direct threat to our environment, human health, and the delicate balance of our planet.
On Monday, campaigners called on the Thai government to urgently pass a Clean Air Act as the kingdom braces for its annual peak pollution season. Thailand Clean Air Network, a group of academics and activists, submitted a draft to the government along with an open letter urging Prime Minister Srettha Thavisin to alleviate the pain and suffering inflicted on the Thai public. More than 2 million people have sought medical treatment for problems related to air pollution, according to the Health Ministry. Can warn in its letter to Srettha that responsible government agencies are unable to effectively manage this problem, pointing to a lack of coordination between ministries. A critically endangered Sumatran elephant was born in western Indonesia over the weekend, according to officials, giving renewed hope to conservation efforts after several other baby elephants and rhino births in recent months. The calf was in good health and his mother Rizka was being monitored after giving birth on Saturday, weighing about 108 kilograms. The male calf was born at the Waikambas National Park in Lampung province in southern Sumatra. The new addition to the elephant herd at Waikambas comes after a baby Sumatran rhino was born there in September and another baby elephant was born at a different national park in Sumatra that same month. The elephant population is threatened by rampant poaching for their tusks, which are prized in the illegal wildlife trade. According to the World Wildlife Fund, Sumatran elephants are on the brink of extinction, with only about 2,400 to 2,800 left in the world. And we have come to the end of this news brief. Before saying goodbye, we want to thank our Caribbean audience, especially the audience of Trinidad and Tobago. We are pleased to share our newscast and contribute to provide an alternative news source of the latest world events. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social medias on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.